The story begins on a bright, sunny morning as the Johnson family prepares for their long-awaited road trip. Marcus, the father, is meticulously checking the tires of their blue minivan, while his wife, Simone, packs snacks and drinks into a cooler. Their two kids, Jasmine and Elijah, are buzzing with excitement. Jasmine, the older sibling, just graduated from high school, and this trip is meant to celebrate her achievement. Elijah, always full of questions, keeps asking if they'll see landmarks like the Grand Canyon or Mount Rushmore. The family piles into the van, laughing and teasing each other, ready to make memories. As they hit the highway, the scenery outside the windows changes from familiar streets to rolling hills and open fields. Marcus drives with one hand on the wheel, occasionally glancing at his rearview mirror, not out of nervousness but habit. He's a quiet man, someone who prefers listening to speaking, and his calm demeanor makes him the anchor of the family. Simone sits in the passenger seat, flipping through a playlist on her phone, trying to find the perfect road trip songs. In the back seat, Jasmine scrolls through social media, sharing pictures of the trip so far, while Elijah presses his face against the window, pointing out cows and random roadside attractions. But beneath the surface of this seemingly ordinary journey lies something unspoken. Marcus has always been a bit of a mystery to his family. He rarely talks about his past, brushing off questions with vague answers or changing the subject entirely. Simone knows there's more to him than meets the eye, but she's never pushed too hard. After all, Marcus has always been a loving husband and father, and that's enough for her. Still, there's an air of curiosity surrounding him, especially when strange things start happening during the trip. Their first stop is at a small gas station along a quiet stretch of road. As Marcus fills up the tank, Elijah notices the attendant, staring at them longer than necessary. "Why is he looking at us like that?" Elijah whispers to Jasmine. She shrugs it off, telling him not to be paranoid. But when they walk inside to grab some snacks, the attendant mutters something under his breath about people passing through. It's subtle, almost imperceptible, but it leaves a sour taste in Simone's mouth. She brushes it aside, reminding herself that not everyone is friendly, especially in unfamiliar places. Later that day, they stop at a diner for lunch. The food is greasy but satisfying, and the kids laugh as they share fries and milkshakes. But even here, there's a sense of unease. A group of truckers sitting nearby whisper among themselves, casting sideways glances at the Johnsons. When the waitress brings the bill, she hesitates before saying, "Y'all be careful out there, okay?" Her tone is kind, but her words carry a weight that none of them can quite place. By the time they check into a motel for the night, the little incidents from the day begin to add up in Simone's mind. She wants to believe it's all coincidence, just the quirks of traveling, but deep down she can't shake the feeling that something isn't right. Meanwhile, Marcus remains quiet, his eyes scanning the parking lot as if searching for something. Or someone. He doesn't say much, but his body language suggests he's on edge. The kids, oblivious to the tension, fall asleep quickly, exhausted from the day's adventures. Simone, however, stays awake, watching her husband as he paces near the window. There's a storm brewing outside, both literally and figuratively, and she wonders how much longer they can keep moving forward without confronting whatever shadows seem to be following them. As night falls, the Johnson family continues their journey along a deserted highway. The road ahead is illuminated only by the faint glow of the van's headlights and the occasional flicker of stars peeking through the clouds. Marcus drives steadily, his hands gripping the wheel with practiced ease. Simone sits beside him, scrolling idly on her phone while occasionally glancing at the darkened landscape outside. In the back seat, Jasmine has fallen asleep, her head resting against the window while Elijah fiddles with his headphones, trying to drown out the monotony of the ride. Suddenly, red and blue lights flash in the rearview mirror, breaking the quiet rhythm of the night. Everyone freezes for a moment before Marcus calmly pulls over to the side of the road. "What's going on?" Elijah asks, his voice tinged with nervousness. Marcus doesn't answer immediately, but instead adjusts the mirror, to watch as a police officer steps out of the patrol car behind them. The officer approaches slowly, flashlight in hand, shining it directly into the van before settling its beam on Marcus. "License and registration, please," the officer says curtly, his tone clipped and devoid of warmth. Marcus nods, keeping his movements deliberate and calm as he retrieves the documents from the glove compartment. He hands them over without saying a word, following the unspoken rule they've all learned over the years. Stay polite, stay quiet, and don't give anyone a reason to escalate things further. The officer examines the papers under the dim light of his flashlight, squinting as if something doesn't add up. "Where y'all headed?" he asks, his tone more accusatory than curious. Marcus replies evenly, explaining their road trip and celebrating Jasmine's graduation. The officer grunts in response, clearly unimpressed. "This part of town isn't really friendly to outsiders," he mutters, his words dripping with insinuation. Elijah shifts uncomfortably in his seat, biting back a retort that Simone quickly silences with a firm glance. The questioning grows, more invasive. The officer asks why they're driving such a late-model vehicle, whether they have any weapons in the car, and even how much cash they're carrying. Each question feels like a jab, probing deeper into their lives than necessary. Marcus remains composed, answering carefully and instructing the family not to speak unless spoken to. But inside, tension simmers. Elijah clenches his fists, struggling to understand why this man seems so determined to make them feel guilty for simply existing. Simone tries to diffuse the situation by offering a warm smile and thanking the officer for ensuring everyone's safety. Her attempt at politeness seems to fall flat. The officer barely acknowledges her, instead focusing his attention on Marcus. There's an edge to his demeanor, as though he's searching for a reason to detain them longer. For a fleeting moment, Marcus locks eyes with the officer, and there's something unreadable in his expression, a flicker of authority or perhaps warning. It's gone almost instantly, but it leaves the officer pausing for a second before handing back the documents. "Be careful where you go around here," the officer says finally, his tone laced with thinly veiled hostility. With that, he returns to his patrol car, leaving the Johnsons sitting in stunned silence. Marcus waits until the red and blue lights disappear into the distance before pulling back onto the highway. No one speaks for several minutes, the weight of what just happened hanging heavy in the air. Finally, Elijah breaks the silence. "Why did he treat us like criminals? We didn't do anything wrong." His voice trembles with frustration and anger. Marcus exhales deeply, gripping the steering wheel tighter. "Sometimes people see what they want to see," he says quietly, avoiding eye contact with anyone. Simone reaches over to place a reassuring hand on his arm, sensing the storm brewing beneath his calm exterior. Jasmine stirs awake, groggily asking what happened. When Elijah fills her in, she shakes her head in disbelief. "It's always something, isn't it?" she mutters bitterly. The conversation fades into uneasy silence as the miles stretch on ahead. None of them realize yet that this encounter is just the beginning, and that Marcus's past may hold secrets far bigger than any of them could imagine. The tension from the traffic stop lingers like a storm cloud as the Johnson family pulls into a roadside motel later that night. The neon sign outside flickers weakly, casting an eerie glow over the cracked pavement and worn-out building. Marcus parks the van in a shadowy corner of the lot, far from the main office, his eyes scanning the area with a quiet intensity that doesn't go unnoticed by Simone. Inside their room, the air feels heavy, thick with unspoken questions and simmering emotions. Elijah paces back and forth, unable to shake the frustration from earlier. "Why didn't you say something back there?" he demands, turning to Marcus. "You just sat there and let him talk to us like we were criminals." His voice rises with each word, echoing off the thin walls of the motel room. Marcus doesn't respond immediately. He's sitting on the edge of one of the twin beds, elbows resting on his knees, staring at the floor. When he finally speaks, his voice is low but firm. "Sometimes keeping your head down is the only way to stay safe." he says, though the words sound rehearsed like they've been said many times before. But Elijah isn't satisfied. Safe? That wasn't about being safe, that was about letting him win. Simone steps in, her tone gentle but firm. Elijah, enough. Your dad knows what he's doing. She shoots Marcus a look, silently urging him to explain more, but he remains silent. Jasmine, who had been scrolling through her phone, looks up at her father. He's right, though. Why didn't you stand up for us? You always act like you're hiding something. Her words hang in the air, sharp and accusing. For a moment, no one speaks. Then Marcus sighs, rubbing his temples as if trying to push away an invisible headache. It's complicated, he mutters, avoiding eye contact. But the kids aren't ready to drop it. Elijah crosses his arms defiantly while Jasmine leans forward, her curiosity piqued. Complicated how? She presses. Before Marcus can answer, the faint sound of a phone vibrating cuts through the tension. Everyone freezes, their attention shifting to the small table where Marcus's cell phone lies face down. He hesitates for a split second before picking it up and stepping outside onto the balcony. The door clicks shut behind him, muffling his voice but not entirely blocking it. Through the glass, snippets of his conversation drift into the room. Still clean. Don't think so. Watching. Too closely. Jasmine exchanges a glance with Elijah, both of them wide-eyed. What's he talking about? Elijah whispers, moving closer to the door to listen. Simone grabs his arm gently, pulling him back. Let him handle it, she says, though her own curiosity is written all over her face. When Marcus returns, a few minutes later, his expression is unreadable. He slips the phone into his pocket and sits back down without saying a word. The silence stretches until Jasmine can't take it anymore. Who was that? What's going on, Dad? She asks, her voice softer now but still insistent. Marcus rubs his hands together, clearly debating how much to reveal. Finally, he looks at each of them, his gaze steady but tinged with regret. Some things are better left unsaid. He begins, slowly. But I'll tell you this, sometimes doing the right thing means living a lie. And sometimes the people you're protecting don't even know it. His cryptic response does little to ease their confusion. Elijah throws up his hands in exasperation. That doesn't make any sense. Protecting us from what? From cops who think we're guilty just because of how we look? Simone places a hand on Elijah's shoulder, her touch grounding him. We'll figure it out, she says firmly, though her eyes betray her own doubts. Right now, we need to focus on staying together and getting through this trip. As the argument fades into uneasy quiet, Jasmine lies awake in bed long after everyone else has drifted off to sleep. Her mind races with questions. Who was on the phone? What kind of right thing could possibly require so many secrets? And most importantly, why does it feel like her father is carrying a weight far heavier than any of them realize? Outside, the wind whistles softly through the trees, carrying with it the promise of more challenges ahead. None of them know it, yet, but the answers to their questions may come sooner, and cost more than any of them are prepared for. The next morning, the Johnson family wakes up to gray skies and a damp chill in the air. The mood is somber as they pack their belongings back into the van. No one speaks much. The weight of yesterday's traffic stop still hangs over them like a dark cloud. Marcus seems more alert than usual, his eyes constantly scanning the parking lot and the road beyond. Simone notices but says nothing, choosing instead to focus on keeping the kids distracted with small talk about their plans for the day. As they pull onto the highway, the landscape shifts from rolling hills to dense forests. The trees form a canopy overhead, casting long shadows across the road. It's quiet inside the van, save for the hum of the engine and the occasional rustle of Elijah flipping through a comic book. Jasmine stares out the window, lost in thought, while Simone occasionally glances at Marcus, trying to gauge his expression. Something feels off, though she can't quite put her finger on it. About an hour into the drive, another pair of headlights appears in the rearview mirror. At first, it seems harmless, a car simply traveling in the same direction. But as the miles stretch on, the vehicle stays close behind, neither speeding up nor falling back. Marcus's grip tightens imperceptibly on the steering wheel. "Dad, why's that car following us?" Elijah asks, twisting in his seat to get a better look. Marcus doesn't answer immediately. Instead, he adjusts the mirror slightly, his jaw tightening. "Probably just another driver," he says finally, though his tone lacks conviction. Simone leans forward, peering through the back windshield. The car is nondescript, an older model sedan with tinted windows. But there's something unsettling about its persistence. "Maybe we should stop," Jasmine suggests nervously. "Let them pass or something." Marcus shakes his head almost imperceptibly. "No, we keep moving," he says firmly. His voice brooks no argument, and the family falls silent, tension crackling in the air like static electricity. A short while later, they approach a gas station nestled alongside the highway. Marcus pulls in abruptly, parking near the pumps. As he steps out to refuel, he motions for Simone to gather everyone's things quickly. "We might need to leave fast," he mutters under his breath, his words barely audible over the sound of the fuel pump. Simone nods, her heart beginning to race as she hustles the kids inside to use the restroom and grab snacks. Back in the van, the mysterious car rolls into the lot and parks a few spaces away. Two men sit inside, their faces obscured by the darkened windows. They don't move, just sit there idling, watching. Elijah notices and tugs on Jasmine's sleeve. "Look, they're here too," he whispers urgently. Jasmine swallows hard, her pulse quickening. Even Simone can feel the unease radiating off Marcus as he slides back into the driver's seat. Before they can decide what to do next, one of the men steps out of the sedan. He approaches the van casually, but his demeanor changes when he gets closer. "Hey, you folks okay?" he calls out, his voice carrying an edge that doesn't match his friendly tone. Marcus lowers the window slightly, his body language guarded. "We're fine," he replies evenly. "Just getting gas." The man studies him for a moment, then glances at the license plate before nodding. "All right, just checking. Be careful out here. Roads are dangerous these days." With that, he returns to the sedan, leaving the family staring after him in stunned silence. Once they're back on the highway, Elijah breaks the tension. "What was that all about? Why were they following us?" Marcus exhales sharply, gripping the wheel tighter. "It's not about us," he says cryptically. "It's about me." Simone turns to him, her brow furrowed. "Marcus, what aren't you telling us?" He hesitates, clearly torn between protecting them and revealing the truth. Finally, he speaks in a low voice. "Years ago, I worked undercover for people who didn't always play by the rules. Some of those people might still hold a grudge." The revelation hits the family like a punch to the gut. Jasmine and Elijah exchange shocked looks, while Simone processes the information in stunned silence. Before anyone can respond, Marcus adds grimly, "And if they've found us, this trip just got a lot more complicated." The weight of Marcus's admission settles over the van like a suffocating fog. No one speaks for what feels like an eternity, the hum of the engine and the rhythmic swish of windshield wipers the only sounds breaking the silence. Jasmine stares at her father in disbelief, her mind racing to reconcile the man she knows with the image of someone who once worked undercover. Elijah shifts uncomfortably in his seat, glancing nervously out the window as if expecting another car to appear behind them at any moment. Simone finally breaks the quiet, her voice steady but laced with concern. "Marcus, you need to tell us everything now." Her tone leaves no room for argument, and Marcus nods slowly, acknowledging that the time for secrets is over. He takes a deep breath before beginning, choosing his words carefully. "A long time ago," he starts, his voice low but clear, "I was part of a federal operation targeting corruption within law enforcement. It wasn't just about catching bad cops, it went deeper than that. Some of the people involved were powerful, connected, and dangerous. When my cover was blown, I had to disappear. That's when I met you, Simone, and built this life with you. And the kids." Elijah interrupts, his voice rising with frustration. "So why are they coming after us now? Why can't they leave us alone?" Marcus sighs heavily, rubbing his temples as if trying to push away the memories. Because some of them never forgave me for exposing their secrets. They've been watching, waiting for the right moment to strike back. And it looks like they've found it. The revelation sends a chill through the family. Jasmine hugs her knees to her chest, her eyes wide with fear. "What do we do?" she asks softly, her voice trembling. Marcus grips the steering wheel tighter, his knuckles turning white. "We keep moving," he says firmly. "But first I need to call someone who might be able to help." He pulls into a secluded rest area surrounded by dense trees, parking far from the few other vehicles present. After making sure no one is around, he steps out of the van and dials a number on his phone. The call is brief, his voice hushed but urgent. When he returns, his expression is grim but resolute. "It's Agent Carter," he explains. "An old ally from my days undercover. He's agreed to meet us at a secure location tomorrow morning." Simone frowns, skepticism creeping into her voice. "Can we trust him?" Marcus hesitates for a fraction of a second before nodding. "He was the one who helped me get out when things went south. If anyone can protect us, it's him." The night drags on as they drive cautiously toward the meeting point, taking winding back roads to avoid detection. The kids fall asleep eventually, exhausted by the whirlwind of revelations and tension. But Simone stays awake, her eyes fixed on Marcus's profile as he navigates the darkened roads. She wants to believe him, to trust that this Agent Carter will have answers. But doubt gnaws at her. What if this is all a trap? What if the very people Marcus trusted before are the ones hunting them now? By dawn they arrive at the designated spot, a remote cabin tucked deep in the woods, its windows dark and its surroundings eerily silent. As Marcus parks the van, two figures emerge from the shadows, both armed and wearing tactical gear. One of them approaches cautiously, holding up a badge. "Agent Carter?" Marcus asks, his voice steady despite the tension crackling in the air. "That's right," the man replies, his tone calm but authoritative. "Let's get you inside. We don't have much time." As they follow him into the cabin, the reality of their situation sinks in. They're not just running anymore, they're fighting for their lives. And Marcus knows that whatever happens next could determine whether his family survives or becomes collateral damage in a war they didn't ask to join. Inside the cabin, the air feels heavy with tension. Agent Carter motions for the Johnsons to sit at a small wooden table in the center of the room. The space is sparse, just a few chairs, a dusty couch, and a map pinned to one wall, but it's clear this place has been prepared for their arrival. Two armed guards stand by the windows, their eyes scanning the tree line outside as if expecting trouble at any moment. Carter pulls out a laptop and sets it on the table, his movements brisk and efficient. "We don't have much time," he says, glancing at Marcus. "They've tapped into police databases and are tracking your movements. Every stop you make, every license plate scan, it's all being flagged." Simone's hands tremble slightly as she clutches Elijah's shoulder, her mind racing with questions. "Who exactly are they?" she asks, her voice tight with anxiety. Carter hesitates before answering, choosing his words carefully. "A rogue faction within law enforcement. People who were exposed during Marcus' operation but managed to slip through the cracks. They've been lying low for years, but now they see an opportunity to settle old scores." He looks directly at Marcus. "You know what they're capable of." Marcus nods grimly, his jaw tightening. "Which means we can't stay here long," he says, looking around the room. His eyes lock onto the map on the wall, studying it intently. Jasmine notices, his expression shift from fear to determination. "What's the plan, Dad?" she asks softly, her voice barely above a whisper. Marcus exhales deeply, turning back to face his family. "If we want to end this, we need proof. Something undeniable that ties them to their crimes. If we expose them publicly, they'll lose their power and maybe even their freedom." Carter interjects, his tone cautious. "It's risky. Going after them means putting yourselves directly in harm's way. Are you sure you're ready for that?" Simone steps forward, her voice firm despite the fear in her heart. "We don't have a choice. Running won't solve anything. If there's A way to stop them, we have to try. Her words seem to galvanize everyone, even Elijah, who straightens up and nods resolutely. Carter explains the next steps. They'll use bait, a fake tip, to lure the rogue agents into a trap. Using the same systems they've exploited, Carter will plant false information about Marcus being at a specific location. When the agents move in, federal backup will be waiting to intercept them. It's a dangerous game, relying on split-second timing and trust in people they barely know. But Marcus insists it's their best shot. As the hours pass, the family prepares for the confrontation ahead. Carter outfits them with earpieces so they can stay connected during the operation. Marcus practices calming breathing exercises, trying to steady his nerves while Simone packs essentials into a backpack, her hands shaking but her focus unwavering. Jasmine and Elijah stick close together, whispering reassurances to each other. They've never felt more afraid or more united. By nightfall, they're back on the road, heading toward the designated checkpoint where the sting will take place. The van feels smaller somehow, the weight of what's to come pressing down on all of them. Marcus drives silently, his eyes fixed on the road ahead. For the first time in years, he allows himself to think about the life he built with Simone and the kids, the life he's now risking to protect them. As they approach the desolate stretch of highway marked on the map, Carter's voice crackles through the earpieces. Remember, stick to the plan. Don't deviate under any circumstances. Marcus repeats the instructions aloud for the family, his voice steady but tinged with emotion. We do this together, he says, glancing at each of them in the rear view mirror. No matter what happens, we stick together. The van slows as they near the checkpoint, its headlights cutting through the darkness. Shadows loom ahead and the faint sound of engines grows louder. This is it, the moment everything changes. None of them know yet how high the stakes truly are, or what sacrifices lie ahead. All they know is that they're ready to fight for justice, for survival, and for the chance to reclaim their lives. The van rolls to a stop at the desolate highway checkpoint, its headlights illuminating the eerie stillness of the surrounding landscape. The air is thick with anticipation, and the faint hum of crickets serves as an unsettling backdrop to the tension gripping the Johnson family. Marcus grips the steering wheel tightly, his knuckles white, while Simone places a reassuring hand on Elijah's knee in the back seat. Jasmine sits rigidly beside her brother, clutching her phone like it might somehow shield them from what's about to unfold. Suddenly, the quiet night erupts into chaos. Two unmarked cars screech onto the scene, their headlights blinding as they surround the van. Men spill out of the vehicles, shouting orders and brandishing weapons. Get out of the car, hands where we can see them. One of the agents barks, his voice cold and commanding. Marcus exhales sharply, muttering under his breath, "Here we go." He turns to the family, his tone calm but urgent. Do exactly as I say. No sudden moves. Slowly, he raises his hands and steps out of the van, his movements deliberate. Simone follows, her heart pounding but her face steady, determined not to let fear take over. Jasmine and Elijah climb out next, their wide eyes darting between their parents and the armed men surrounding them. One of the rogue agents approaches Marcus, sneering as he shoves him against the van. Thought you could run forever, didn't you? He growls, pressing harder than necessary. Marcus doesn't flinch, his expression unreadable. Instead, he locks eyes with the man and says evenly, "You're making a mistake." The agent laughs bitterly. "The only mistake was letting you breathe this long." Just then, Carter's voice crackles through the earpieces. "Backup is en route. Hold your positions." Marcus repeats the message softly for his family, willing them to stay calm despite the escalating danger. But the agents aren't waiting. They begin searching the van, tossing bags and belongings onto the ground in a frenzy. Elijah instinctively steps forward, his anger boiling over. "Hey, leave our stuff alone," he shouts, earning a harsh shove from one of the men. Before things can spiral further out of control, a deafening roar splits the air. Multiple police sirens piercing the night. Headlights flood the area as federal vehicles arrive, blocking off the rogue agents' escape routes. Agents pour out of the cars, guns drawn, shouting commands that mirror the ones issued moments ago. Drop your weapons. On the ground, now. For a split second, time seems to freeze. The rogue agents hesitate, caught off guard by the ambush. Chaos erupts as some try to flee while others resist arrest, leading to a brief but intense exchange of gunfire. Marcus shields Simone and the kids. Behind the van, his body acting as a barrier against the danger. Bullets ricochet off metal and the sound is deafening, but miraculously no one in the family is hit. When the dust settles, the rogue agents are subdued, handcuffed, and forced to kneel on the asphalt. Federal officers secure the scene, confiscating evidence and reading Miranda rights. Carter emerges from one of the vehicles, relief washing over his face as he approaches Marcus. "It's over," he says simply, placing a hand on Marcus's shoulder. But the victory comes at a cost. As the officers lead the captured agents away, Marcus collapses to his knees, blood seeping through his shirt. In the heat of the confrontation, he had taken a bullet meant for Elijah, who had impulsively stepped into the line of fire. Simone screams, rushing to his side as tears stream down her face. "Marcus, stay with us," she pleads, pressing her hands against the wound to slow the bleeding. Jasmine and Elijah cling to each other, overwhelmed by shock and guilt. "Dad, I'm so sorry," Elijah sobs, his voice breaking. Marcus manages a weak smile, reaching up to squeeze his son's hand. "Not your fault," he whispers hoarsely. "You protected your family. That's all that matters." As paramedics rush to stabilize Marcus, the family watches in stunned silence, their hearts torn between gratitude for their safety and grief over the price Marcus paid. The road ahead will be long and painful, but for the first time in days, they feel a glimmer of hope. The shadows that haunted them have been exposed, and though the scars will remain, they've emerged stronger, together. Months have passed since that fateful night on the highway, and life for the Johnson family has slowly begun to find a new rhythm. Marcus survived his injuries, though the recovery was long and grueling. The bullet wound left a permanent scar, a physical reminder of the sacrifices he made to protect his family. But it also became a symbol of resilience. Sitting in a quiet park one afternoon, Marcus watches Elijah toss a football with Jasmine, their laughter echoing through the crisp autumn air. He feels a deep sense of peace, knowing they've come out stronger on the other side. Today is special. The family has gathered at a community center for a ceremony honoring Marcus's bravery. Federal officials, local leaders, and even some neighbors are in attendance, all there to recognize the role he played in dismantling a corrupt network within law enforcement. A plaque is presented to him, engraved with words of gratitude. 4. Courage in the face of adversity. As Marcus steps up to accept it, the room erupts into applause, but his eyes remain fixed on his family seated in the front row. Simone smiles proudly, her hand resting over her heart, while Jasmine and Elijah beam with admiration for their father. After the ceremony, as they walk back to the car, Elijah breaks the silence. "Do you think things will really change now?" he asks, kicking a pebble along the sidewalk. Marcus pauses, considering the question. "Change doesn't happen overnight," he says thoughtfully, "but shining a light on the truth is always the first step." Simone nods in agreement. Since the incident, she's become an advocate for justice reform, speaking at community events and working with organizations dedicated to ending systemic racism and corruption. Her efforts have inspired others, including Jasmine, who plans to study journalism in college so she can tell stories that hold people accountable. Elijah, meanwhile, has channeled his energy into art, using his sketches to depict the struggles and triumphs of marginalized communities. Each member of the family has found a way to turn their pain into purpose. As they drive home, the same stretch of highway where their nightmare began stretches before them. This time, however, it feels different. The shadows that once loomed large seem smaller now, diminished by the strength they've gained together. Jasmine scrolls through photos on her phone, reminiscing about the road trip that turned their lives upside down. "Remember when we thought this trip would just be about fun?" she muses aloud. Everyone chuckles softly, the memory bittersweet. but no longer painful. When they pull into their driveway, the house feels like a sanctuary. It's not just the familiar walls or cozy furniture. It's the bond they share, forged in the crucible of fear and survival. That evening, as they sit around the dining table sharing a meal, Marcus raises his glass. "To us," he says simply, his voice filled with emotion. "No matter what happens, we face it together." The clink of glasses echoes through the room, sealing the promise they've made to each other. Though scars, both visible and invisible, remain, the Johnsons carry them as badges of honor. They know the world hasn't changed completely. Challenges still exist and prejudice lingers, but they've learned to navigate it with courage, love, and unity. Later that night, as Marcus stands on the porch watching the stars, Simone joins him, wrapping her arms around his waist. "We made it," she whispers, leaning her head against his shoulder. Marcus nods, a small smile playing on his lips. "Yeah," he replies, "and we'll keep making it, one step at a time." In the distance, the horizon glows faintly, hinting at dawn. For the Johnson family, every sunrise brings hope, a chance to build a brighter future guided by the lessons of their past and the unbreakable ties that bind them.